Hi guys, best regards from Ingolstadt. I have heard that you entered the Kamel GT Championship this year in the good old GTO car, so I wish you best of luck and a lot of success.
Best greetings to all drivers from the Audi GTO 90 Championship. Good success.
At Zandvoort was frantic to say the least. The tight confines will probably provide quite a contrast to today's Enduro, though. Barcelona's modern facilities and wide circuit should alleviate some of the drivers' frustrations, but the reputation of this place precedes it, and some drivers have already expressed a dislike for the course. Will today's race change minds, or will some still be left happy to see the other side of it? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. With Barcelona being a new circuit here on iRacing, we might as well introduce our viewers to this recent addition. Let's head down to our track guide. Welcome to Circuit de Barcelona. The home of the Spanish Grand Prix for nearly 30 years, it's easy to forget that this is a relatively recently built track in Europe. It's known for its long, sweeping corners and hosts the highest level of open wheel and motorcycle racing. Placing an emphasis on a good aerodynamic setup with high downforce cars, it's often overlooked that it offers plenty of overtaking for lower tier racing as well. In fact, most don't take into account that this adaptable track has 5 different layouts to choose from. These range from the nearly 3-mile-long Grand Prix version to the minuscule 1-mile club circuit. Because of the pit straight being the longest acceleration zone, Elf is the most likely spot for drivers to get a pass done. After that, your next hope might be into Lakaja, which, depending on which layout you use, could be a sharpened set of 2 turns or one long hairpin with an opening radius. In the early 2000s, a chicane was added close to the end of the lap, but the old Europe car corner can still be run. The Spanish fans have some gorgeous views from the many hills dotted along the track. And with the international fame this place has built over time, it's no wonder they're almost always full come race day. Looks pretty spectacular here, especially with the detail that iRacing puts into it. But Adam, why don't we get into some of that detail about the stats of this place?
Definitely, Joe. Famous for hosting many legendary races over the years, the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya this layout is a 4.73 kilometer or 2.94 mile, 13-turn circuit that has proven quite the challenge for many drivers over the years, regardless of discipline. The drivers today will be tackling the 1995 era style historical circuit, which extends the normal turns 10 and 11 into a long sweeping corner before cutting off the traditional 14 and 15 by taking the sweeping turn to the outside of the track. The Nissans are best suited for this circuit with the high downforce assisting them through the corner, like the treacherous turn 3, which the Audis will struggle heavily with. Where the Audis will thrive, though, is on the long pit straight. Expect a few draft battles there going into one. As far as multi-class, the Nissan's closing rate at this track may be one of the highest we've ever seen and will pose a struggle for both classes to manage. This is a new track to every driver, and with 60 minutes on the docket today, it will require their utmost to win.
Of course, we also have a championship that the drivers are competing in here today. So why don't we look at the prototypes, the GTP Drivers' Championship. Ardo Iamaki up at the top, and there's a bit of a gap to Anti-Lepisto. But from there on down, look how close everything is. Not a far jump back to Fabian Gerber, who is on the upswing, by the way. Took his second win last week. Nick Mukanos and Justin Albrecht. Now, Albrecht has moved down a few spots because he didn't show up. In fact, he's missed a couple weeks now. So Justin's got to start showing up because those are going to be his drop weeks for sure. And he can't really have any bad races from here on out. Heading over to the GTO standings as well. Adam, how's that looking?
Yeah, definitely. Things are looking fairly interesting in the GTOs. It's a very tight battle with Yoni Hagner with 95 points. Only 4 points back is Phil Lake. Even with his unfortunate events this season, he still is doing quite well. Jamie Hall, on the other hand, is 13 points back, which is still fairly close. But with him not being here this week, that's going to put him at a drop week for this week, along with Michael Houghton. So Dennis Neidhart has an opportunity, who is tied with Houghton, to climb upward towards that third spot and join Phil Lake and Yoni Hagner on the podium for GTO right now.
And we've got a special championship here with the GTOs. They call this the Milk Zoo GTO Championship, sponsored by Milk Zoo, naturally. And this is held between the Italian drivers in this series. Just strictly the Italian drivers in the GTOs. Franco Scurry is currently leading by quite a margin. There you see Georgiusha back by quite a few points between himself and De Pasqua. It's relatively close, but even closer between third and fourth, De Pasqua and Cesana. They're trying to figure that one out. Alexandro Nocera rounds out your top five, but we still have more that are competing here in that Italian-based championship. Of course, we've got viewers who may have never watched the Kamel series before. So, Adam, what are our race details?
Well, it's round 6 of 12 here. We're halfway through the season. It seems like it's flown by. This race is their endurance race. So this is a 60-minute race. We're usually requiring a pit stop for both classes. Now, due to a small snafu in the rule set, the Audis will not have to stop today, but the Nissans definitely will. There is an open setup with no fast repair, no spare car, and you get 17 incidents until you get a stop and go penalty, and 25 incidents will make you disappear off the track, and these drivers are going to be struggling with that today, especially with how tight some of these corners are.
Yeah, undoubtedly. The Audis certainly do not like long sustained corners. And in qualifying, currently, Justin Albrecht has returned, and he's put it on provisional pole, interestingly. Neidhart, who was looking good in the warm-up, we were noticing that earlier, Adam, he's got it on provisional pole, so clearly he is quick here.
Yeah, he's quick, but Villy Rolla has yet to put in a time. So as we see Neidhart take a little bit of an off track there, Villy Rolla has come across the line, and he has only come in second place, as you can see on the board, 0.177 back of Dennis Neidhart. So it looks like Dennis has been doing some practice leading up to this race.
Certainly has. Rolla has got some work to do for sure. And Phil Lake is getting ready to finish his qualifying, I believe. Nope, it looks like he's about halfway through the lap here. This is his second one, though, and he's got about a couple tenths to make up to Neidhart. Now, interestingly, with Albrecht here and on the pole, we don't have Fabian Gerber, and I do believe he said he'd have to miss that because he's preparing for the 24 Hours of Daytona, of course. And that not helping the participation here today, but certainly a lot of drivers put a lot of weight over there on iRacing's version of that classic race. Neidhart coming across for that second lap, unfortunately, does not count. And Phil Lake, who improves, doesn't go up onto the front row. He stays in third.
That's going to be tough for him, but he's starting in that second row. He's used to doing that. Laust Olsen coming across the line, he improves a little bit and goes up to 6th place. So a lot of these drivers who are here right now and usually don't have an opportunity to battle for the lead, they're going to have good opportunities this race, especially in that GTP class.
Absolutely. So Justin could make up some ground, and Fabian might find himself slipping backwards, taking a drop round here today. Rolla having come around this final turn. New Holland onto the straight. Can he take the pole away? It's a 42.238, but he stays put, still a tenth off of Dennis Neidhart.
My old battle buddy Hideki Koivisto just came across for his second lap, and he has completed it with a 1:45.1, so that's improved his time. He's doing pretty good right now, just about half a second off of the leaders in 7th place.
Just 2 drivers left to complete their qualifying with about a minute to go here, and that's Marco Cesana and Johnny Bell. Now, looks like Johnny is going to be the first to take the line here of these two. Koivisto, who's still out there, has already completed both of his laps, so at this point, he's just warming up. Johnny does not get a time in both of them. He had an off. Interesting. Marco Cesana with a 1:46.1 puts him into 9th in class, so not bad for the number 13. Koivisto just going to keep trying to put those warm-up laps in that number 17. That gives us a chance to look at something while we give you the grid, which is set now. Let's start with our prototypes, of course. It is Justin Albrecht who is on the pole. Ardo Iamaki will be starting in 2nd. Then you've got Nick Mukanos in P3. Antti Lepisto, 4th for him. The inside of row 3 has Fabian Jungbluth in there. Laust Olsen up in 6th. Again, these drivers might have a good opportunity for a great finish here today. Pablo Suarez in 7th position, and then Heitor Sintes Guindo P8. Mike Reuter will be starting in 9th, and Roberto De Filippis will round out your 10 drivers in the prototypes.
Dennis Neidhart's going to take a surprise pole for the GTO class, with Vili Rolla coming in, starting on 2nd this week. Surprise for the last couple of rounds. Then we have Phil Lake starting off in 3rd. Alongside him is going to be Rob Olenek. Then Franco Scurry is going to start off in the 5th position in the GTOs alongside Daniel Sadro, with Hideki Koivisto and Thomas Delmuth in 7th and 8th. Marco Cesana, Giulio Forcolin, Michael Haynes, Johnny Bell, and Ryan O'Toole are going to round out your GTO field this week.
23 cars will take to the track. This is a new circuit for this series. Let's see how these drivers deal with a new challenge out here. As you can see, the last of them now gridding up behind the Porsche pace car. It is a little bit, well, not early in the morning, but it's only 10:30 virtual standard time out here in Spain. That's why you're seeing a few shadows here with the clouds kind of blocking things at an angle, and a little bit windy as well at 11 miles per hour. But ideal conditions, Adam, it's only 76 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface.
Well, it's ideal to start the race, but things are gonna get a little bit more interesting, especially for the Audis as that sun continues to rise. As we get closer to 11 o'clock, it's gonna get really hot for those Audis front tires, and especially with the fact that they don't have the option really of a pit stop because it'd be too slow this week, then they don't have the option to take tires either. So they're gonna be struggling on pace significantly by the end of the race, and I expect them to be at least a second to 2 seconds off their starting pace by the time we finish this race today.
Well, taking that into account then, Adam, I have to ask, do you think a major factor in who wins or who takes a good place is going to be tire management today?
I think it's possible. We've seen the pace of Vili Rolla race pace wise. He's usually 2/10 a lap faster than the rest of the field. So I think for the GTOs especially, it's going to be keeping Rolla behind everybody. As far as the GTPs are concerned, tire management is the name of the game. And even with Justin Albrecht starting on pole, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone come up and challenge him like we've seen Fabian Gerber do in the past.
All right, so as they come around, just 2 more corners to go. Albrecht has the pole. It looks like he has a good opportunity for a win, but what can he do with this different format, this different track here today? And not his usual major rivals up there, except for Lepisto and Iamaki. Pace car is in the pit lane. Albrecht brings it around New Holland. Nice format here with the drivers all double file, looking very tidy. Immediately, Albrecht goes as the green flag comes out, speeds down the front stretch with a big jump over Iamaki. Behind him, it's a side-by-side battle for 3rd place. Lepisto and Mukanos. Nick to the inside down there, trying to see if he could get in there, but there's just not enough grip. As Lepisto takes it, let's go back to the GTOs.
It was a great start for Dennis Neidhart and Billy Rolla. Billy actually backed off to let Dennis take the corner, and Phil Lake is right on the back of Billy. He's going to look to the outside, but around this long sweeping turn, a little bit of contact there. There's not really a chance to make a pass. Franco Scurry behind has actually passed Rob Olenek for the 4th position, so Franco taking every opportunity of the small field. Here comes Rob up the inside.
Into Repsol, he manages to get in there, but it's almost a slide job as he shoves Scurry back to the outside of the corner. He does get that 5th place back, but certainly things are hot here at the start of a 60-minute race. Contact behind them as well. Cesana and Koivisto coming together slightly as they went through Seat.
Yeah, the big news right now that I'm seeing on our timing and scoring sheets is Justin Albrecht already out to a 1.5-second lead over Ardo Iamaki. He is simply flying at the front of that GTP field. This man's impressive in these GTPs every single week, and when he's here, and here he is again, already out to 2 seconds now.
Iamaki not looking like he has the pace on Justin. In fact, Iamaki a little wide coming off the final corner. Slows him up, but he's already pulled his own gap over Lepisto. Don't think we're going to see much of a run of a challenge down here into Elf as everybody breaks in line. Pretty much single file throughout the GTP field. Let's head back to those GTOs then, since, as you said, the draft down this long straight could affect things.
Yeah, it could, but I don't think anyone's quite close enough to make a move here. Yeah, everyone's gaps are a little bit too big. Billy Rolla gets a little closer to Dennis Neidhart, so that's going to help him as he goes into these big, long, sweeping corners. But Billy Rolla's got to start managing his tires a little bit behind Dennis Neidhart. We know Dennis tends to have a fairly aggressive driving style, and that could actually come back to hurt him later in the race, especially with the fact that these Audis are not going to be fueling. But you have to remember another factor, Joe. Most of these drivers have not driven these Audis on full fuel. So these cars are going to feel completely different than what they're used to during this series.
That's a good point. This is certainly throwing so many curveballs to our drivers today. Neidhart is staying under threat from the Finn. Rolla was the man to beat last week as he took the victory at Zandvoort. Can he make it back-to-back is the question. And also, if they start fighting, back there you can see the dirty torque driver of Phil Lake isn't that far behind. I'm sure he'd love to see them start to try and slow one another up.
Yeah, Phil's going to need to just hang on to the back of these two here. But if Billy gets by Rob, he's going to have to do everything he can to get past Dennis, rather. And because we've seen Billy just take off in front of the field, just like Justin Albrecht has, to the order of 3 seconds in front of those GTP.
You see Lake on your screen now. As we head back now to Justin Albrecht, it's 3.5 seconds back to Iamaki, and they're on to lap 3 already, heading down into Repsol. The drivers are struggling to try and keep up. You did say that tire management was a thing, though, here today, and that makes me wonder if Iamaki and Lepisto know something that Albrecht doesn't?
It's either that or the other way around. It's possible Albrecht has taken a lot more of downforce on that car to allow him to get through the faster corners better, whereas other people have taken less downforce to try and make passes on the straights. But as we're taking a look at the battle between Ardo and looking at Lepisto as he's trying to hold off Nicholas Makanos, it's going to be interesting to see how the strategies play out today with these GTPs.
Down in Lakaja, they're all still a little too far apart. I talked about the F1 races here. These are starting to look a little bit like those F1 races where drivers struggling to stay close to one another with these long, long corners, especially in these high downforce Nissans. They're going to come around to finish another lap out of New Holland. It is still Albrecht your leader, Iamaki in second, Lepisto third, Mukanos in fourth. Bit of a breakaway from all of these drivers. You got a 2-second gap back to Ugluk behind them.
You got to remember, Joe, that this is an endurance race, and there is a pit stop for these GTPs, so the urgency isn't quite there yet for them. Once they pit, we're going to see a lot more urgency going, and looks like we have a battle going on for 7th in GTO.
Yeah, that was Koivisto and Cesana. Marco, without putting that lap in and qualifying, is trying to make up for it here in a race. Let's look at this. This is pretty textbook, honestly. Marco got it down to the inside. In fact, almost made contact through here as we now pull it up.
Yeah, telegraphing the move quite easily to Hideki Koivisto. Hideki leaving the door open for him, so he knew that Marco was going to at least think about going for it. And so he lets him by and is going to follow the faster driver, and hopefully that'll tow him back up to the drivers in front.
And he's going back at it. Oh, and they come together. Marco gets turned. Another bit of contact. They're stuck in the middle of the track as they've actually blocked it. Drivers having to whoa up now. Finally, they're able to get through. The one to take advantage of it the most is Ryan O'Toole.
And Johnny
He gets up to 8th with that.
Johnny Bell took some significant front-end damage on that as you see him going around the outside of Giulio Forcolin. He's gonna be struggling a little bit, and if he has too much front-end damage, this could affect his overall pace significantly.
Let's look at a replay of that. Ryan O'Toole just picked his way through perfectly. Now, the timing somewhat worked out as well for him because I think everybody kind of started to pull aside. Here's from Johnny Bell's view.
Johnny sees it coming, but he just has nowhere to go, and he tried to steer to the outside, but he looked like he locked up his front tires, so he couldn't make that position back. And we have more contact now. We have Thomas Delmuth, who just got spun. No, sorry, that was... Thomas Delmuth, who got spun by Ryan O'Toole while we were in this replay.
I guess we'll stay with it here afterwards. Where did this happen? Oh, yeah, this was through Worth, so might as well stay on this replay. Just a couple corners ahead. There's O'Toole, the Texas driver, who's managed to work his way up at this point. Now he's got to make some defensive moves. Up into Repsol. Took a little bit of a look as there's a defensive line to the inside from the driver in front of him. And then behind him, as you mentioned, that's Delmuth, who's starting to catch back up. He was held up by that incident. And it's this next corner here, coming up into Worth. Too wide through here, just doesn't work out. At least not usually. Ugh.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure who I'd place blame on for that one. Delmuth ran a little bit wide along with Johnny Bell, so that one looked like it was kind of just a racing incident in that situation.
All right, our leaders have now hit the traffic for the GTOs. Justin Albrecht he's gotten by Michael Haynes, and he's coming up to the back of Forcolin and Johnny Bell, who are actually in a battle for position here. So he's got to pick his way through carefully.
Now for Justin Albrecht, this smaller field is a little bit of a blessing as Forcolin goes quite a bit wide through there. And for Justin, this is a huge blessing for him to have a smaller field, because if there were 20 or 22 GTOs on the track, this would be a much more difficult prospect. But with only 12 on the track, he's going to have a little bit of a better time making this work.
Ooh, and something happened to Sintez Guindo, and I'm not quite sure. We don't need a replay, I don't think, because he spears straight off of Renault and just plows into the barrier. He's actually stuck now. I wonder, he must have had some sort of hardware issue because he's finally disconnected after sitting there a long time.
Yep, and Justin Albrecht, we're going to take a look at this battle for P3 here. This is between Antti Lepisto and Nicholas Bucanos. They are fighting it out quite difficultly right now.
Yeah, they're dealing with that lap traffic we were talking about. And they're coming up to Johnny Bell, which might hold up Yamaki just a little bit, interrupts his momentum slightly. Oh, and a battle for the lead in the GTO starting to get close here.
Yeah, Dennis Neidhart's starting to tax those tires even already on lap 6 of about 35 we're predicting, and he's really starting to struggle a little bit. Billy Rolla looking consistent as ever on the back of Dennis Neidhart. I think he's got him down the next pit straight, Joe.
Oof. And are they going to be caught by our prototypes? No. So they're still a ways behind. This is just going to be a straight fight. So we ride on board with Neidhart on his gearbox, looking back at Rolla. Of course, I know my dad would be shouting at me right now because the gearbox is not at the back of the Audi, apparently.
All technicalities aside, it is a great camera angle to see how much you're getting hounded by the car behind. It's where they often put the rearward-facing cameras these days on the modern GT cars, and it's awesome to see that angle every time.
Fantastic stuff. All right, here's the moment of truth. Rolla, is he going to be close enough? He's going to get the slipstream, and he's going to be there or thereabouts. Looking through the windshield, this gives us a great perspective of what it's like to creep forward, but he starts to lift. Oh, just not interested in it currently.
Yeah, I guess maybe he's satisfied with saving a little bit of fuel. Maybe he doesn't think the Audis can make it all the way to the end, or maybe he thinks that wasn't his best opportunity, but it was his best opportunity yet. And if he's not careful, he's going to let Phil Lake climb up to the back of them again.
We'll see, because he is very, very close to the rear of that GTO right now. We got some information from Sintes Guindo. His VR apparently failed on him, hence why he had to end the race and why he just speared off.
I can report Robert Di Filippi just made a pass on Mike Rutter for the 8th position in the GTP class on the front straight. Mike got a little bit loose on the exit there, so he's gone by, Robert Di Filippi's gone by, rather, into the 8th position in GT.
So we continue to watch on board this battle for the lead. I want to stay with this because I'm kind of with you. I feel like he can't hang around too long. Phil Lake looks like he's closing. It's down to about a second between himself and Rolla.
And we're going to take a look on board with Phil and see how he's handling this. That's a lot of wheel input, Joe, into that Audi. I'm a little concerned about that because we know how long they have to go on these tires. But man, his lines look really clean and really good. It's clear that he has been practicing.
All right, onto the front stretch. That was our GTP leader going through, Justin Albrecht. Going to leave them be. This could be a distraction as well for Neidhart. Indeed it is, because Rolla's to the inside. Neidhart isn't defending, but he's not deep enough on the brakes. He stays in second place for now.
Neidhart, best of the late breakers there. He just barely made that apex. Impressive stuff. But look at this. Billy Rolla can carry a lot of speed through this long sweeper here and not be taxing the tires too much. It's awesome to see these Audis right on the edge of grip as they go through that corner.
Yeah, I wonder if that car is set up much better for that mechanical grip. Rolla just looking incredibly strong. You sometimes talk about, Adam, the percentages that you can put the power to the different cars or different tires with this being a four-wheel drive car. Do you think, would that help in some of these long corners in this car?
It definitely will. That's where the four-wheel drive is actually going to help you a little bit. It looks like Dennis actually has a little bit too much rear bias for that four-wheel drive, whereas Billy Rolla is a lot more balanced. But now they've got Ardo Iamaki, Antti Lapisto, Nick McComas in between them. It's going to be three wide.
And Rolla sends it in. That's actually going to hold up our prototypes. Lapisto's got nowhere to go. Mukanos gets ever closer to him, but the lead changes for the GTOs as Rolla gets it away from Neidhart.
Phenomenal opportunity, but Rolla's going to be held up here on the exit. This might give an opportunity for Neidhart going onto the straight. Neidhart's going to go around the outside, which is going to lose him a little bit of time because of the Nicholas Mukanos coming through. But here we go, onto the straight. Let's see whether or not Dennis has any speed here.
The complications of dealing with traffic here in the Camel Series never ceases to amaze me. And down the front stretch, Rolla immediately goes all the way to the inside to try and fend him off. Stays there as well, takes a shallow line into the first turn, but Neidhart can't get beside him.
Neidhart doing a great job of choosing the opposite line from Billy Rolla and making Billy have to work hard to defend this position. But Billy has this pace and he has the position now. All he has to do is position his car correctly and make sure that Dennis Neidhart doesn't get to his inside on any of these long, tight corners.
Faust Olsen now trying to find a way through, and this is where the track kind of weaves back and forth on you. He gets to the inside, compromises the line of both cars, still trying to get away. Oh, and a missed shift from Rolla, hands it back over to Neidhart.
Oh man, I love it. These two are really duking it out here. That is Pablo Suarez, who are stuck in between them now, and it's actually broken up the battle. Billy had to lift coming off the corner, so that gives Dennis an advantage.
Dennis trying to streak away while he's got the chance. And look behind them. There's Phil Lake. He's within half a second now of the Finn. He wants to see if he can get higher on this podium.
It really wasn't the battling between those two that caused Phil to be able to get to the front. It was actually how the traffic was managed between both classes. And wow, Dennis pulling out about second lead over Villiarola. That's going to give him this straightaway for free, whereas Phil Lake is going to be able to be on the back of Villiarola by the time they get to the end of it. And Villi actually clips the curb a little bit, is going to lose a little bit more speed onto the straight.
Oof, he's struggling in this past lap and a half. Number 6 obviously has his hands full. Now let's stay with this battle because this is definitely a lot more interesting, but an update for our fans of the prototypes. Albrecht still leads, and the traffic has certainly given him a lot of help. It's now up to 10 seconds between himself and second place Iamaki.
When it's just one of you trying to cut through that field, it makes it a lot easier than if you're trying to follow another GTP through. And Arden Iamaki just got caught up in this battle just a little bit, and it gave Justin Albrecht another good 2 seconds to his lead.
They still got more prototypes coming. De Philippis and Reuter, who are fighting for position, are approaching quickly. There you see them in the background as they come off of Seat. And hopefully they don't get them in Worth, because that is just a very narrow corner.
I feel like got a little bit bogged down in second gear coming off of the corner, so that allows Villiarola to pull away, and Villi's actually catching the back of Dennis Neidhart again. If Neidhart's not careful, Villi will make that same jump that he made last time. Here comes Roberto De Filippi and Mike Reuter through.
And they're going to go by Lake, but as they break, De Philippis is stuck between them. Looks for the outside, can't quite get down on the power, so he stays back there. Maybe use the extra downforce around the outside of Bonk Sabadell. Still just not there. He's struggling to try and overtake this slower class. Oh, and finally he gets inside of Rolla, maybe distracted him a little bit through there.
Oh man, and Mike Reuter's going to have the same problem. He's going to get blocked a little bit by Rolla. They both go to the outside. Here's two battles for position about equidistant apart from each other on track. It almost looks like a copy and paste with different cars.
And they're going to split them once again, maybe. Nope, there he goes down to the inside. That was Reuter with a bit of a rude move on Dennis Neidhart. Still, he made it work, and no harm, no foul.
That definitely held up Neidhart, but now they're into the long sweeper, so that advantage that Villiarola gained, which got him down to about 4/10, he gained about 2 to 3/10 just off of that move from Reuter. So now Villi right on the back of Dennis Neidhart again.
I love when this brings things back together. I'm sure Dennis doesn't like it, though, as they plunge back downhill. Phil Lake still giving a watchful eye. These three, by the way, 6 seconds ahead of Rob Olenek. In spite of everything, Rob just doesn't seem to have a car underneath him today to really be in the mix, which is unusual because usually Rob is one of our quickest drivers in this series.
Well, Rob and Nick Picanos last season were battling for the GTU Championship, the kind of Academy Driver Championship in this series, and those two really battled it out in that series. They ended up about 4th and 5th for most of the races because we had some really strong runners up at the front. But Rob is possibly just saving tires here, as we see that his teammate Dennis Neidhart is starting to lose grip on those front tires now.
That's a good point. I wonder if maybe some of these drivers thinking about that. Let's head back over to the battle for second in the prototypes, though, because Iamaki and Lepisto are incredibly close to one another.
Yeah, it looks like Lepisto is getting into the corners a lot better, but Iamaki has rotated by the time they get to the apex, so he's exiting better. And Lepisto is able to gain on him on these straights, but here we go. They're coming up to Giulio Forcolin. That's going to hold up Iamaki a little bit. That's going to allow Lepisto to get close.
We watch from on the roof of Lepisto, breaking down into Lakaja. He gains ground, but not enough of it. He stays a very serious threat here. One thing that I'm always interested in, too, in these cars, Adam, is the Nissan. If they're not willing to use the virtual mirror, from what I understand, it's really tough to see behind you.
It is extremely tough to see behind you, and so if you're in VR and not really willing to use that virtual mirror, or just not willing to use it for the sake of immersion, it's going to be very difficult to see where the cars are behind you, especially because you're going to have to look in either direction in order to see those outside mirrors, and those things are tiny.
Yeah, they really are. In fact, some of the drivers, when this car first came out, complained about it being blocked by the A-pillar. But we have a challenge for the lead on the GTOs as Ruola took a look to the inside of Neidhart down in Lakaja. Couldn't make it stick, though.
Yeah, Neidhart's pace is definitely dropping, and that's allowing Rolla to be able to challenge him more. But Rolla just needs to set him up for this pass here. He just needs to get him in position and set him up for this front straight. Dennis has had the better exits the last couple times onto the front straight. Let's see whether or not Billy can get a better one this time.
It looked like a good angle through the corner as they come off. Just doesn't seem to have the speed. The slipstream once again taking effect as he closes in, but he brakes without popping out. Doesn't want to give it a go.
Well, it's an interesting decision here. I think Rolla does need to get by Dennis. Oh, here's an opportunity. Dennis goes a little bit wide there through 3, and that gives Rolla an opportunity to look to the inside, but it's not going to work now. Here he goes looking to the inside again, but he's just not deep enough on the brakes. I think he could send it in there and get away with something here.
He could pull a similar move what we saw to what we saw for one of our Italian drivers up there. Of course, and now his name is escaping me. Unfortunately, I can't think of who it was that tried to pull that move. Scurry is who it was, excuse me. And had it for at least a little bit. But Rolla's been a bit of a thinker's driver. As great as he is, I feel like he prefers to try and plan that move out a little bit farther ahead.
Yeah, him and his Glacier Racing teammate, they both are more of thinker's drivers, especially his... as Joni Hagner actually has the least amount of incidents per corner in the entire series. So these two drivers are very clean and consistent. They don't take a lot of risks, and it actually works out for them most of the time. They gain their pace just off of raw pace, not by trying to challenge people in low percentage moves.
That tells you something about them. As they come down the front stretch, he's a lot closer this time. As we've hopped back over to Laust. Oh, and we got to go back to the lead for the GTOs because this time Rolla is going to the inside, and it's down into Elf. He's got it side by side. As they come out of the second apex in that chicane, it switches back into Renault, and this is definitely going to be in favor of the Finn. He's got the lead away, but can he keep it? Neidhart might not be as afraid of those low percentage moves as he looks to the inside, but a block down there taking the middle of the track from Billy Ruola is going to keep him the lead.
Now the opportunity comes into Phil Lake's hands. He's going to look to the inside of Dennis Neidhart, who's looking to the inside of Billy Ruola. They're almost 3 wide as they go through that corner. And it looks like Dennis Neidhart's going to try and get an advantage, but he spins the tires off the corner that backs off both him and Phil Lake.
Wow, everybody's got the bit between their teeth now. We're not even halfway through this race as well. And they come up to Campsa. This is going to be a critical corner. A lot faster in those F1 cars, but they have to slow up quite a bit, and that was a horrible run for Dennis Neidhart. Here comes Phil Lake. He's going to look to the inside. He's deep on the brakes, and he's got a nose in as they come out down into Lakaja. Side by side, this track once more is going to switch directions. Neidhart taking the inside, almost banging wheels through that long 180-degree turn, and it comes out in favor of Neidhart.
Phil knows he has to go. He's seeing Billy Ruola pull away almost a second ahead of Dennis Neidhart. He's going to have to make something work on this straight if he wants to keep up with that Finn ahead.
I'm starting to think the tires are indeed going off like you talked about earlier, Adam, as they come down the front stretch. Lake is extremely close. He's staying in the tire tracks. Now he starts to pop out. He comes to the inside, but Dennis looks very good on the brakes down into Elf this time through. And now they're going to get joined by our GTP leader.
Yep, this is Justin Albrecht who's going to try and go around the outside of them. That's the easiest, safest way around. Look at that, losing no time at all. Justin Albrecht smokes through to continue to maintain his 14.5-second lead over Ardo Iamaki.
The Finn has been extremely kind on those tires, I'd say, the way that he is keeping ahead of Neidhart right now through Seat. Staying right underneath that rear spoiler. Phil Lake hounding Dennis at every corner.
Dennis has to climb back up onto the bumper of Villarola. It looks like he's starting to do that, but they're about to catch the back of their own class now. We have Michael Haynes, who's only 3.5 seconds ahead. Michael tends to stay out of the way of battles like these, but where he chooses to do that could surprise a driver and cause him to lift in a moment that he wouldn't and give another driver the advantage.
I think they're going to catch him on the front stretch, though, which would definitely be the easiest place for him to try and squeeze out of the way. As they approach, the seconds ticking down up to that lapped car. And yes, indeed, if he wants to, he probably could give it away on the front straightaway.
I think that's probably what he's going to do here as he sees these charging Audis coming up behind him. Dennis Neidhart with a fairly good exit there, but Villarola is going to take the opportunity to catch that draft off of Michael as best he can. That's going to take away any advantage that Dennis had. Dennis is going to take the same opportunity. Michael's going to get a little confused on where to go here, I think.
I think he saw he was a little slower than them, so he lifted a little bit and lets them all through. Only car compromised was Phil Lake down the entry into Elf. Otherwise, he didn't lose too much.
And trust me when I say this is, in fact, a multi-class battle race here, but the best battle on track is this one for the lead of the GTOs. The closest other battle we have on track is just under a second with Antti Lepisto and Arto Iamaki, which we'll check in on if we get any developments.
Quick mention, as let's stay with this with all the traffic coming through, but Scurry and Sadro actually are trying to sort out fifth as well, but they're not side by side right now. And with Lepisto and Iamaki interrupting things, they've split Phil Lake apart from them. He's going to try to get in down into Campsa, and Dennis Neidhart gives him just enough space at the apex. That is knowledge of these cars right there, with our leaders knowing just where they can place it.
And Dennis, if he had headlights, he'd be flashing them right there. That's a little bit of a disrespectful move to the Audi, because the Audis really need that apex in order to make that corner. He had to back off a lot and probably scrub quite a bit of tire wear off of that. Here comes Nicholas McConnor on the outside of both of them. This is going to compromise Dennis's line again. Villarola getting the best of this traffic right now.
There he goes on through. Mukano's he's been trying to give chase on Lepisto and Iamaki, but he seems to have just as much bad luck as Neidhart does here with the traffic. There you see him in the blue and white Nissan. Still chasing, but about 3 seconds behind Lepisto currently. Oh, and we got our first taker of scheduled stops, I think, in the GTPs. Laust Olsen has come down pit lane.
This is a little bit early, but considering the fact that the GTPs can go probably about 50 minutes on fuel, he's got no problem on pitting this early. But it just depends on whether or not he's okay carrying the extra weight. And if that's the case, then he's going to be fine. But it's going to be interesting to see what kind of strategies they play, because different drivers will have fueled their cars to different amounts in this GTP class. So we'll see a lot of differing strategies. Looks like Daniel Sadro and Franco Scurry are side by side, though.
That was a battle I was talking about earlier, and Sadro looks like he has it. Nicely done. Daniel moves himself up into P5 with that move. Let's take a look at the replay on how that happened. Looks like it was just a good slipstream down the front stretch. There he is popping out.
And Franco did a great job to hang on to this one as long as he could. He tried to get the inside of that corner and really make the best of it. But, man, that was just a good move from Sadro to hang on the outside of the corner and come back, switch it up to the inside on this long arcing corner that makes Franco go a long farther way around, and that allows him to get the lead.
And as we come back live, they were both held up through Campsa there by prototypes, similar to what we saw with Neidhart. So they were equally held up and stay about the same distance apart. Though now down in Lakaija, looks like De Filippi is going to cause him some headache. Meanwhile, let's go back to the lead for those GTOs.
Yeah, things are very close here between Neidhart and Ruola, but because of the cars ahead of him, which is Suarez and Jungbluth, who are also very close, Neidhart didn't feel safe making the move, but that's allowed Phil Lake to gain a little bit more time and catch up to the back of these guys.
Exactly at halfway through the race at this point. Once again, through Renault, I'm amazed at Rola's traction, as the car just looks beautifully balanced through that long right-hander. And that is where Neidhart continually falls back.
Yeah, Neidhart's been struggling a little bit in that position. Phil Lake struggles with this corner here, trying to get the car pointed on exit. And so that's where he loses a little bit of time. So each of these drivers, each of these cars have their differing strengths. Yeah, that's what I love about open setup racing is you see different strengths for each driver, each car, and we're seeing that on screen now.
Certainly given us some fascinating racing in both classes. Speaking of which, the prototypes, P2 has stayed close, and this is about the closest it's been down the front stretch.
Yeah, definitely. Andy Lapisto is definitely better than Ardo Iamaki through the final sectors, and so that's allowing him to gain a lot of time. But Ardo Iamaki is just placing his car where it's best to do so. Look at how fast Lapisto is through the corners. That is what's giving him his advantage, but Ardo Iamaki is faster on the straight sections, and so he's able to stay ahead. Unless traffic intervenes in this battle, nothing's going to change up here.
Going to be something that swings his way, but they've got a long ways to go before they get to Rhino 2. He's next GTO up the road. It's a few corners up still.
And Justin Albrecht has the better part of a pit stop in the bag here with 20 seconds ahead of the rest of the GTP field, ahead of Ardo Iamaki here in second place. Antti Lapisto and Ardo Iamaki, they know that this battle is just between them for that second spot.
So Albrecht making up for his lack of presence last week with a fantastic drive so far, but he's still got half this thing yet to go. He has to keep it clean and keep this pace up. So we continue to watch this fight for P2 between Iamaki and Lapisto out through Europe car. And there's our pit stop. Well, this actually might help Lapisto significantly. With a clear track in front of him, he can put his foot down now.
Yeah, it's going to help him a little bit, but remember, Lapisto's the one who is slower in the straight line, so without that draft, he's actually going to lose a little bit of time. So this actually might work to the advantage of Ardo Iamaki if he can do the the short stop here and make the pass on track.
Yeah, the undercut could work out better for him. Ardo taking tires, obviously. Getting that little bit of fuel, and then on his way he will go. Out of his stall, back onto the track, only falls down to 6th place.
I can report that in the lead of the GTOs, Dennis Neidhart has lost significant amount of time to Villi Rolla. He's still within draft range, so that's not a danger, but he's not up on the bumper of Villi Rolla anymore, and that was due to some traffic getting in between them. So this front pack for the GTOs is starting to break up a little bit as this run goes on.
It's just a little bit of lap traffic in the form of De Filippis going around them. We only had 2 of our prototypes take a stop at about halfway, so I wonder if the rest of them trying to run it as long as possible here.
I'm also taking a look at a battle on track between Fabian Jungluth and Pablo Suarez. These two are duking it out for this, I believe it's 4th position after the pit stops. So they're quite close, and Pablo's actually got some decent pace on Fabian, which is a little bit surprising. We've seen Fabian be quite strong, but Pablo's doing a great job today.
Fabian's definitely one of those drivers I feel like who's improved as time has gone by in our coverage of this series. We've seen him climb and climb, and lately been fighting for these top 5, sometimes even podiums. Jungluth, if I recall, has a victory or 2 on broadcast. It's been a bit, though. He's held him off at least down into Elf this time. Suarez staying with him, making sure he continues to feel the pressure.
Pablo looks like he just doesn't quite have the amount of wing that he would like on the front of that car. Just the leading edge flaps just not in the right position for him. He's struggling a little bit to get to the apexes, whereas Jungluth's not having that problem. But where Jungluth is struggling is on corner exit with tire spin. So these two drivers having different struggles with their setups.
Suarez continuing to try and follow. You know, speaking of the 24, it just occurred to me, one of the things I'd love to see iRacing do potentially is give us a retro 24. Put these 2 cars out in Daytona, see who can handle 24 hours of Kamel at that track. That would certainly be a challenge, I feel like.
A little bit of a cheeky move there from Suarez, trying to duck out and make Jungluth go defensive into the corner. Didn't quite work for him. as it looks like Justin Albrecht is out of the car.
He's lost connection or something, because he blinked on mine quite a bit, and he's not showing as connected right now, but we haven't gotten word yet from the sim that he's been kicked out.
This is not the first time this has happened to him. This would be a huge tragedy for him if this happened again.
Oh my goodness, especially from such a dominant lead, having things under control. He's still not back yet. Really crossing my fingers that he's able to come back into this race. If not, Antti Lepisto will be smiling, grinning ear to ear, because he's got this win in the bag at the moment. Well, I shouldn't say in the bag, because I guess he was challenging Iamaki. Iamaki would be the one, rather, I should say, who should take the lead over. Lepisto is the one who will inherit it, at least for the moment, but he needs to take his pit stop. Still no message about Justin's connection completely failing, but he still hasn't reappeared. And if you're in the ether for this long, I doubt that you're coming back.
It's possible to come back. It's possible the sim will still connect you, but at this point, he's probably watching that Q bar climb and just has his head in his hands. Unless he's, I bet he's still trying to go around the track, but this is dangerous to do when you're that fast.
At this point, I'd say now's the time for his pit stop. Just take it
and
in.
There it is, Joe.
He's gone. Well, Iamaki and Lepisto are now left to sort it out amongst themselves, but we need Lepisto to pit to really figure out where they sit with one another. It's about 29 seconds between them on track.
Absolutely heartbreaking for Justin Albrecht, but a fantastic opportunity for either Lepisto or Iamaki to grab a win here. This is a great opportunity for some good points for these two.
And we're still waiting for them to pit so that we can get a little bit of a battle on track. Although up in what is now third place, Jungbluth and Suarez are still about half a second apart. This won't be for the podium once the pit stops are completed. You see, that is Jungbluth in the blue and white machine. And then the dark blue and white car, that is Suarez.
I can also report that the lead of the GTOs has closed a little bit. It's back to 6/10, but Dennis Neidhart and Philip Blake are both struggling heavily on their tires now. And with no pit stop in sight, these two are going to have to be hanging on to it by the skin of their teeth in order to make it to the end of this race.
In fact, as we watch those leaders, they're coming up on a battle in their own class of lapped cars. Johnny Bell is holding off Giulio Furcolin. I think that's Thomas Delmuth, or is Delmuth? No, Delmuth is not in this battle. He's out of position.
Yeah, so Johnny Bell and Giulio Furcolin, they're duking it out for these last couple positions on the lead lap now, and Furcolin struggling a little bit on corner exit. He's struggling getting the power down and getting those shifts cleanly. The Audi gearbox is almost a language in and of itself. It's a very difficult beast to handle, and when you're not used to it, the thing can catch you off guard quite often. And it looks like a little bit of that's happening with Furcolin right now.
Yeah, he's fallen off big time. Olsen now coming through. He's going to easily get by, although he holds... Oh, wow. He's unfortunately denying the apex from Johnny Bell big time down through Lakaja. So Furcolin gets a little bit of that time back thanks to the racing gods.
And 2 seconds behind these are Villy Rolla, Dennis Neidhart, and Phil Lake. So these guys, this is going to make things interesting for our leaders in the GTOs. This could either go really well for them or really poorly. Villy Rolla is going to have to figure out whether these guys are going to pull over or not, and then decide what to do about it.
I can imagine we're getting close to the pit window closing soon for our prototypes, maybe in the next 10 minutes. We've only had two of them. Iamaki and Olsen have finished theirs, which Olsen, let's see, about 30 seconds behind De Filippi. So he's probably going to be battling him once De Filippi's pits for 7th place. Right now, we've lost 2 drivers in the prototypes and 1 in the GTOs. Albrecht, Cesana, and Sintez Guindo are only DNFs of our 23 starters.
All right, so we have a very interesting moment here for these leaders in the GTOs. We have Anti-Lapisto trying to go by, as well as them trying to battle these lap cars as well. So this is going to be an interesting position. Dennis Neidhart caught on the outside. We have Giulio Forcolin going through the grass. Man, all of it's kicking off here in this multi-class battle.
So Forcolin is going to lose a lot of ground to Bell in that. So how does Bell handle things? Here goes Rolla giving Lapisto way through Campsa. Our leaders easily by. And now Johnny Bell's going to lift a little bit, let this battle for the lead and the GTOs get on through. And that actually gives a little bit of, well, no, that's Delmuth gaining on him back there.
That is an extremely sportsmanlike move. After Forcolin, his challenger, went off track, he's able to give these positions up to the leaders and not cause them to wait any longer. That's a very gentlemanly thing to do.
Absolutely.
Oh no, Nicholas Mikano spun behind as he tried to brake for this group.
Now, there's a lot of paved runoff to the inside, since that is where the modern layout has the chicane. He didn't hit anything. He didn't lose a position.
Yeah, he just didn't expect Phil Lake to slow up that much for the corner. He thought he'd have it inside line and didn't expect it. And so he hit the brakes and the rear end just came around on him. He's in the pits now.
Yeah, I think this is just a, well, I'm already here, so might as well come in for pit lane. So again, didn't see any damage come out of that incident. He just gets it going once more. Let's see. That brought our top 3 in the GTOs very much back together. Looks like we got a couple other GTPs pitting. Reuter and De Filippi's don't need to go to it. So finally seeing a few of those kick off.
Yeah, these battles are starting to get very interesting. Yeah, we have a lot of pit stops. Mike Reuter and De Filippi, as you said, are in, and they're going to try and do what they can to come out. They've been battling with each other for a good portion of this race, so they come in together, they'll leave together, and they'll fight together.
Oh, and Olsen will be well ahead of both of them. Despite De Filippi's taking a much quicker stop than Olsen. So that actually gives Laust 6th place in all this.
Nick Makanos comes out in 5th, 25 seconds behind Ardo Iamaki as well. So Ardo quite a ways ahead. That spin for Makanos lost him a good 10 seconds.
Certainly puts him into no man's land. Fabian Jungbluth now coming in. He was fighting with Suarez. Suarez stays out. See if maybe the undercut with the fresh tires will help him at all.
That's another factor we didn't talk about, is that these GTPs do get to take fresh tires on their stops, so that is going to have an effect. But you also have to remember that by stopping later, you're taking less time in the pits for fuel. So Jungbluth with a 12.7 stop, I don't even know if he took tires that speed.
Interesting.
Oh, and we have a pass for second place in the GTOs. That's Phil Lake on Dennis Neidhart. They're getting held up. They're holding up Pablo Suarez as well. Phil went to the inside of that corner. Dennis is going to defend now. This is going to really hold up Pablo Suarez.
Yeah, this is not good for him after his rival just took a pit stop. Suarez is just blocked in. He's got nowhere to go. Tries to get the exit off of Campsa and is finally able to get through. Now, Ardo Iamaki's coming up behind him, and though this is for position, they are off strategy from one another.
If Ardo gets held up here, this is going to be really difficult for him because Anti-Lapisto's free and clear right now and making laps around the track. So, oh man, he's really struggling on the outside of that corner, but he's able to keep it going and keep it going straight. Let's see whether it gets held up here by Pablo.
Looks like he's going to be able to get around our leader in the GTOs, although he has to take an awkward line with Rolla. Now he goes chasing after Suarez. Like you said, doesn't want to be held up here by too much. It's too far back to try and do anything at this point. We're still waiting for Lepisto and Suarez to pit, so maybe Suarez will free him up at the end of this lap anyways.
But what this has done, it has broken the draft from Dennis Neidhart and Willy Rolla. Those two, Dennis Neidhart is no longer in Rolla's draft, so this might be an opportunity for Rolla to pull away, and he knows it. He's increased his pace now.
Keep a half an eye on our leader as well, because Lepisto's coming around Lakaja right now. Like we said, we should expect stops for the rest of the field pretty soon. There you see him, the number 1 car in P1 around Europe car. This is the pit entry here. We'll know early. No, he's going to stay out.
I think he's going all the way until that tank is empty, Joe. He's committed to this long stop strategy. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the gap is between him and Iamaki, whether or not he can get that pit stop done.
Now, the gap has come down slightly. I remember I said it was about 29 seconds. Iamaki's to 27 seconds now. So he's gaining time.
And the fastest stop we've seen, pit lane time, is 33 seconds. So unless Lepisto's stop is blazing fast, I think Iamaki might have this with the undercut.
Of course, Jungbluth had his 31, but he's not as much of a factor. Of course, we need to watch Jungbluth to see, without the tire change.
Iamaki on Suarez right now.
Manages to get side by side through Renault. And he's going to finish it into Repsol. Don't think Suarez wants to fight him too much. He knows that his battle is not with Iamaki. So they continue on. But I'm curious to see what the pace is like with Jungbluth compared to those who did take tires.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure. I think Lepisto's going to be in the same boat. He's not going to be able to take tires either. The battle between Dennis Neidhart and Phil Lake is heating up even more as Dennis Neidhart misses the apex again. That's going to allow Phil Lake to get alongside. This is a carbon copy of last lap.
He's trying to look for it, but he decides better of it now that they hit Worth. Coming up out of the corner. It's going to stay with Dennis Neidhart in second place, Phil Lake in third. Neidhart took the pole in this class, but has not been able to hold on to it. Roll has been quicker on race pace thus far. Phil Lake trying to demote him yet one more. They're going to be joined by Mukanos.
Joe, Rolla really is quicker on race pace. He's out to 2.2 seconds ahead. He gained 1.5 seconds just in that lap alone. So Rolla really increasing his pace now in the later stages of this race.
So they come around onto the front stretch. Now down to less than 12 minutes left. And boy, through there, Phil Lake really had to give way to Mukanos, who took the apex away at the last moment.
Interestingly enough, last lap, Ardo Iamaki lost about a second to Antti Lepisto. So if Lepisto can do that for maybe another lap, I think he has enough fuel for maybe that long. Or maybe 2 laps, I think he might be able to get out in front of Ardo Iamaki or be close enough to fight him.
He's got some lap traffic in front of him. That's Daniel Sadro, and he's going to take the chance to pit now. I'd say that was a good call. Lepisto in. Iamaki is heading around Lakaja. And again, if you're just joining us, this is effectively the battle for the lead with differing pit stops between our top 2. They've inherited it from Justin Albrecht, having a problem with his internet connection. Iamaki now coming around New Holland. Lepisto still stationary.
I just don't see it, Joe.
Iamaki's got the speed. There he goes.
It wasn't a faster stop. 14.2 to Iamaki's 14.8. Iamaki gained a ton of time on that stop.
Ardo destroyed him out there. Absolutely just left him in the dust. As the timing finally sorts itself out, it's looking like about 6 seconds between them.
And Pablo Suarez has jumped Lepisto in that battle because he's close to Iamaki, so he's
Well,
battling Iamaki for the win, isn't he? Oh, he has
no,
to
no.
pit.
He needs to stop yet. Yeah. Suarez still has to come in. He was fighting with Mukanos, but Mukanos is actually, well, he's, oh, actually, no, he will be out behind Mukanos, I believe, because it's only about 25 seconds between them.
Yeah, about 27, and with the pit stops we've been seeing and the pit deltas we've been seeing, there's no way. Johnny Bell, interestingly enough, takes a pit stop in the GTOs. Oh, sorry, Ryan O'Toole, rather.
Now, let me see if he actually hit something here, because, again, we didn't think that they would need stops.
No, this is a...
Yeah, I'm not seeing any contact with anything.
It's possible he didn't realize the rule exception for this race and didn't put enough fuel in it.
That could be. You know, I wondered about that, who was paying attention and maxed out their fuel to make sure that they could get to the end. Suarez finally pits from second, by the way, so Lepisto now back in a P2. And I believe, like we said, we should see Mukanos come back by. There's Suarez taking his service, and this is Mukanos onto the front stretch.
Yeah, easily, Joe.
Yep, there he goes.
Still, only a 12.6 second stop for Suarez. If Lepisto would have done that, I think he might have been able to beat Iamaki out of the box. But with Lepisto's 14.2 second stop, that has given Iamaki a 5-second lead.
And apologies, looked at my notes. We were mistaken. It was Jungbluth and Suarez that were fighting, that we were watching before. And there's about 2.5 seconds between them, but it's definitely Fabian who came out the better of the two.
Phil Lake and Dennis Neidhart have not stopped battling one another for GTO P2. They are both struggling on tires and both handling it very differently. Dennis Neidhart is sending it into every corner, missing almost every apex, but keeping his pace, whereas Phil Lake is being a little bit more conservative and just giving up the pace in the corners. Rather, ooh, look at this. Dennis Neidhart getting held up by Lust Olsen going through is going to give an opportunity to Phil Lake.
Oh, wow. So this is going to bring them back together. And Phil Lake has looked a little bit feisty today, too. He's tried some things. He just can't seem to execute.
Yeah, his front tires are gone. He's having a really hard time turning the car through the center of the corner. Dennis Neidhart's trying the rally strategy and trying to drift that rear end a little bit through the corners to get the car pointed in the right direction. That's having mixed results, but both these drivers handling the tire wear in different ways, whereas Villarola is out to about a 3.5 second lead.
To come down into Lakaja. Dennis Neidhart at this point on damage limitation, trying to not fall to third place after losing out on the lead. He talked about how quick he was, how much practice he seemed to put in. Looks like it was only 1 lap pace, though, unfortunately, because the number 7 just is not looking the same here in the race as he did in the qualifying and in the warm-up.
No, definitely not. If we could actually go on board with Phil Lake as he goes through the first sector, you're going to see just how much he's struggling. He's going to be putting in quite a few unusual inputs, I think you'll notice, as we go through these first couple of turns.
Something else we should mention, the temperature's gone up a little bit since the start of the race. It's 81 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface. So it's not drastic, but it is enough that you got to watch out for that. This wind speed has gone up slightly since then, too.
Yeah, Phil Lake just with a little bit, he's tight through the center, loose on exit. This is the kind of Audi that is fun to drive, but is not fast to drive, and this makes it really difficult for him to catch up to the back of Dennis Neidhart. But look at this, Neidhart going wide again. Phil's going to try the same move. This hasn't worked any time before, but he's going to give it one more shot.
Dennis hates that corner, it seems. He can't seem to find the apex. Someone needs to give him a map down there. But as they come down to Campsa, again, Lakaja offers a chance to pass at times. If Lake can get the run off the corner.
Joe, it's funny because Phil Lake is actually the one who was struggling with that corner early in the race, so the tables kind of turned for these two.
Just not quite there. Neidhart, you have to admit, is dealing with the pressure well. He's had that dirty torque car in his mirrors, just filling it up lap after lap, and is not letting him by.
Still got a good run there. Is he going to get a good run to the straight?
He's always so much tighter down into the apex than Dennis is. Ooh, this is looking good. Dennis knows it. He goes down to the inside, tries to cover him off all the way down to the pit wall, keeping him from taking the inside away. It's going to be a game of chicken on the brakes. It's the outside for the first apex, but the inside for the next one for Phil Lake. Oh, but he just can't get the power down.
He was just a couple miles an hour too fast into the first turn. Look at how much time he gains on the entry to turn 3, though. Oh, this must be so frustrating for Phil Lake. Here comes Roberto Di Filippi to come through.
De Filippi is going to look around the outside as Lake looks to the inside.
Yeah, I mean, Lake, he didn't have any presence there, but Dennis definitely chopped him off there. That's going to make Phil's blood boil just a little bit. I know the man's a pretty relaxed dude, but I mean, when you're racing like this, you can get pretty steamy in the cockpit.
Ooh, and Suarez is caught back up to Jungbluth. While this has been happening, the battle for fourth has started to get closer together, and Suarez is looking threatening, actually. There you see, he is well within reach.
And that's impressive because Suarez was a good 2.5, 3 seconds behind Jungbluth when they came out of the pits. So Suarez definitely faster. He's going to look on the inside.
Suarez tries to take the apex away, but it's just not there. Has to back out of it. Bad exit coming out of Sayat. And is he going to challenge into Worth? No, not here.
Jungbluth is looking like he's really struggling with rear grip, and that's going to give Suarez a good opportunity on the front stretch, especially to try and make something work here. If Jungbluth can't make the car turn, this is a real advantage to Suarez. But we need to go back to Phil Lake and Dennis Neidhart because Phil's trying again to get past Dennis through turn 1.
And they've got the leader coming up behind him, so Iamaki has to be careful. He has that 6-second lead, so he doesn't need to push things. Almost makes it 3 wide way around the outside of Renault.
Is Phil going to try and outbrake Dennis here?
Oh, I think he should try it. It's just not there. He wants to desperately.
Suarez has not been able to challenge Jungbluth, so the battle is here for right now. Ardo Iamaki, I believe, took 2 to go that time by, so his next lap by will be 1 to go.
Yep, it's going to be white flag for these two. Behind them, Mike Reuter, who's also not battling anybody. He's trying to find his way through carefully without interrupting. There he goes now.
This is going to interrupt Dennis Neidhart a little bit, I believe. And Phil Lake actually blocks off Antti Lepisto taking the inside of that corner, so he wants to make sure he gets that. I'm not sure whether that actually benefited him, though.
Yeah, it certainly compromised his exit a little bit. Lepisto is going to go around the outside of Neidhart. Nope, Neidhart tracks on out.
And white flag for Ardo Iamaki.
Tense stuff here to figure out how the bottom part of the podium is going to be sorted. There's our leader in the GTPs. Ever since he inherited the lead, he's not looked back. Down the front stretch, though, Neidhart goes defensive, but he was well ahead this time out of New Holland. Lake just couldn't challenge him.
Oh, and we need to take a replay, actually, of Suarez and Jungbluth. Suarez just got into Jungbluth and then actually gave up the position again. It's a very gentlemanly move there.
Now this is into Lakaija. There it is right there. He had his nose in. Wonder if he just outbraked himself a little bit there and couldn't get it turned in time. Of course, he was pretty late there.
All right, so these two battles on track are now on their white flag laps, both of them. Phil Lake, Dennis Neidhart, and Jungbluth and Suarez.
Keeping an eye on our leader. We'll go to them when he gets around the final corner here. As we watch this battle through Campsa, this could be a critical moment for Phil Lake. Does he have enough speed to try and challenge him down into Lakaija? Doesn't look for it. Oh, no, there's a look. Not close enough, but we got to go to Iamaki. He's coming out of the final corner. Ardo is your victor here today in the prototypes.
Fantastic race for Ardo. Unfortunately,
And Roll is coming around as well. Willy Rolla didn't have the qualifying pace, but he had the race pace, and that's where it's important. A win today for the Finn, and it is Dennis Neidhart with a stellar defensive job on Phil Lake to salvage second place.
and looking back at Jungbluth and Suarez, Suarez was able to get by Jungbluth in a tight turn, and they actually made door-to-door contact, but Suarez took that position this time around, having felt like he had established his position. He's going to take fourth over Fabian Jungbluth in the GTPs.
Great battles between them.
And let's actually take a look at that pass, because this is a very interesting situation where they had to deal with lap traffic as well.
Good job on Suarez never giving up. Just picked the right side of the track, which is ironically the left. Ooh, they almost came together there. Apparently some slight contact.
Yeah, this is definitely door-to-door contact, but Suarez was very clearly established on the inside line. So Jungbluth trying to go through on the outside, and that contact is what gave Suarez the opportunity to go by.
Good stuff. As the rest of the cars now work their way across the line, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Barcelona. We just watched round 6 as we're now halfway through the Kamel GT Series season, and it is Ardo Iamaki who took another victory. Started from second and climbed his way up to first. A.T. Lepisto with a second place from fourth on the grid. And Nick Mukano's finished where he started. It was Justin Albrecht who started on the pole and DNF due to internet connection. Pablo Suarez, nice job from him to finish fourth today, beating out Fabian Jungbluth on the final lap, who finished fifth. Laust Olsen with a sixth place for him, and Roberto De Filippis with seventh. Last car in the De Filippis was the last car in the lead lap. Mike Reuter was the last before we get to the GTOs. Reuter finishing eighth in those prototypes.
Billy Rolla comes home with another commanding victory. This man is on a roll from pole to, well, not from second on the front row to a win, with Dennis Neidhart in the second position, coming home after a stout defense over Phil Lake, who comes home in third. Rob Olenek comes home in the fourth position, with Daniel Sadro in fifth. Franco Scurry is going to take home sixth, only dropped like one position today, but finishing ahead of his No2 competitors, with Hideki Koivisto coming home in seventh and Johnny Bell in eighth. Giulio Forcolin comes home in ninth, and Ryan O'Toole, after taking a pit stop, comes home in 10th, with Thomas Delmuth and Michael Haynes rounding out your GTO field. Then we have two other DNFs aside from poor Justin Albrecht, Marco Cesana and Aitor Sintes Guindo.
Looks like we got Phil Lake ready to talk to us. He was third in the GTOs. Phil, you were falling off a little bit at the very start. You left a tiny gap between yourselves and Rolla and Neidhart. But then by the end, you were definitely in there. How much of that start was you trying to manage tires, since this was a 60-minute race with no pit stops?
Absolutely none of it was managing tires. I was really pushing to keep up with them. The whole race, basically, I was right on the limit. And then I think Dennis's tires started to go off with maybe 10 laps to go. And that's when Ville was able to make a little break. And then I was putting the pressure on Dennis, but I just couldn't. He defended perfectly, and I couldn't get a move done.
Well, there you go. I guess on it all the way. Man, what an incredible defense there that he gave you, because it looked like you had a lot more speed in a few places. How did you approach the setup of the car in this race? Because we saw you, Dennis, Rolla, all seem to be handling completely differently.
Oh, that's interesting that it looked like that, because I was really struggling with the setup this week. And yesterday's race, I finished some 20 seconds or so behind Vil, and he shared his setup with everybody this morning. So I was using his set. So that's mostly driving style that you were seeing there. His set was really, really good. So big thanks to him. And it really hung in to the end of the race a lot better, which is why I was able to put so much pressure on Dennis.
It's a real testament to the camaraderie in this series that you guys are willing to do that. Barcelona is a new one for the Kamel series. Obviously, it's hard to read attendance because of the 24 today. What are your thoughts about bringing this one back?
I think it's a very suitable track for multi-class and for Kamel. Nice and wide, and most of the corners are pretty high speed, so the Nissans have quite a bit of control over where they pass, and they have quite a big advantage over us here. So it works quite well. There's a few places where it's quite costly time-wise, like the last sector, but it's definitely not one of the worst places we go.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but yeah, it certainly put on some good action. We enjoyed it from up here, even with a smaller field. We got plenty of good racing out there. Congratulations on a podium. Anybody you'd like to thank before you go?
Just thank Vil again. Thank you guys, and Dennis for a good fight.
Awesome stuff. That was Phil Lake, third place here in the GTOs. Nobody else has come to join us. I guess everybody needs a little bit of rest for getting ready for the Daytona 24. I'm sure many are racing teams out there. Let's give a few thank yous before we go. A big thank you, of course, to the Kamel series for bringing us back for another season of coverage, but also a thank you out to our companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. They're listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And also thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media. Our Twitter is @GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. The link is in the description below. Next week, we have a real challenge for this series, Oulton Park. That'll be Saturday, January 25th at noon Eastern. That is an incredibly narrow, incredibly fast, and punishing track. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.